So he has Emuna, Yichud Hashem, Avaz Hashem, Yiras Hashem, davening, sticking to Hashem, L'dav Kabo, swearing in His name, being like Hashem, Kiddush Hashem, Kriya Shema, and now Talmud Torah. Right, Talmud Torah is pretty early. But there he says, Lilmod Ulilamed. Counts one mitzvah, but instead of counting just teaching, just learning, he counts teaching as well. It's part of the same mitzvah. Some Rishonim have it as two separate mitzvahs. The Rambam has it as one mitzvah. Here, he does not even mention it in the Koteret, Lilmod, but if you look back at the Minyan HaKatzar, it's Lilmod Torah, Ulilam Shenemar, V'shinantam L'vanecha. And that he already points out. It's fascinating if you think about it. It does not say anywhere in the Torah that you should learn Torah. The way that the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is formulated is Shinantam L'vanecha, teaching Torah. That's the formulation in the Torah, which is amazing. It says nowhere in the Torah that you have to learn Torah. It says in the Torah you have to teach your kids Torah. In order to be able to teach your kids Torah, you have to learn Torah. But also that could be that the ultimate goal of Torah is to share it. The ultimate goal of learning Torah is not to keep it for myself. It's not my own personal edification, but it is sharing it with others. Lilmod Ulilamed. That's why the Torah itself formulates that the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is teaching. That's the classic in the Torah. We learn from there the mitzvah of learning. But the Rambam here says Lilmod Torah, but it's all counted as one. There is even a fascinating Rashi. You might have heard me mention this Rashi before. There's a Rashi in Brachos on Davav. Rashi in Brachos on Davav Amabez. The Gemara there says, Gemara has a line that Tigra de Pirka Riyata. The schar for going to a shir is the running to the shir. The schar alicha. Tigra de Pirka Riyata. That's what the Gemara says. The Rashi is bothered. What do you mean? What about the shir itself? The shir, going to a shir, is just the going there. You don't get schar for being at the shir. The Rashi says, Iker kibul schar habrios. Aratzam l'shmoa drasha mipicha. This doesn't apply to anybody here, but I'm just saying in general, here, present company excluded. But Rashi says that the Iker kibul of schar, when people go to a shir, Aratzam l'shmoa drasha mipichacham, schar marutza. It's the schar you get for running there. Why? Shahari rubam eina mivinim. If you're at the shir, a lot of people don't know what's going on. What does Rashi say they don't understand? How does Rashi explain don't understand it? Eina mivinim laha'amid girsa, v'lomar shmua mipi rabban, la'achar zman, sheyakablu schar limud. They don't understand it enough to say it over later. And that's the schar for Havana. The litmus test for Havana, an amazing Rashi, love him at Beis and Brachas. The litmus test for Havana is if you could say it over yourself. Now, we all know those teachers. The teacher will say, you understand it? I'll say, yeah. And they'll say, okay, tell him. He's like, no. There's a different level of understanding. So we have to try to understand the ultimate level of understanding of Havana is to be able to say it over. Whenever you have to teach something, obviously, I know some of you gave chaburas this year. Some of you, when you have to give a chabura, you have to know it super duper well. Because, to give it over to somebody else, you can't fake. You can't okay, fine. Like sometimes your chavrusa will let you get away with it. But to give a shir in front of everybody, you have to be worried about those guys. Those guys who are always going to pick up on something that's not clear, right? I'm looking at some of them, but some of them, that you got to be clear, or else it's not gonna work. And the being clear means I have to understand it. And if I understand, if I'm not clear, so then it's not going to work. But either way, that's Talmud Torah, and that's the connection, Lilmod and Lalame. The ultimate level of Limud is to be in a state to know it so well that I would be able to be Malamed it. That's the Rashi, and that's maybe what the Torah is alluding to us with formulating the mitzvah of learning as teaching, as Vishinantam Levanecha, teaching, because learning has to be at the level that I would be able to teach it. Okay, that's just an introduction. Hilchos Talmud Torah, and the Rambam starts off with Parak Aleph. I'll leave you with a question, maybe, and then I'll just ask the question, and then I don't really have a full, complete answer, but I'll just leave it for you. It's been years, but I'm still looking. Maybe I'll try to look a little harder today, tomorrow. The Rambam's first halacha in Hilchos Talmud Torah, Nashim Abadim Uktanim Pturim Talmud Torah. I'm sorry, Nashim Avadim, Pturim Talmud Torah. The Rambam starts off Talmud Torah by telling us who does not have to learn. That's kind of strange. Why don't you tell us who has to learn? Yosef, ask your father if you ever heard an answer. Right? Why is it that everybody, the Rambam tell us? The Rambam is going to spend a lot of time. You have to learn Torah every second, and even when you're old, and even if you're poor, and even if you have a lot of kids, and even if you're going through difficult times. But what does the Rambam start off with Talmud Torah? Women and Avadim don't have to learn Torah. That's how you start. Talmud Torah. Start off with Talmud Torah is one of the Sheva mitzvos that are Keneged Kol Torah Kula. And amazing, and it's Keneged Kulam. No, the Rambam starts off with this part from Talmud Torah. Okay, I have one idea, but again, I don't have a real solid answer. But feel free to do some research before tomorrow. Feel free to call up any lifeline that you want to be able to get an answer to that question, whether it's in America or in England or in Israel, anywhere, trying to find an answer to that. Okay, Mikey, you can ask somebody. Ask somebody today that question. Okay, I'm counting on you. Okay, good. I'm counting on everybody, but in Chicago, I'm sure they have some also, Bergenfield and in Karbi Avno also. I think there are some Rebbeim that you might ask. Okay, feel free. Okay, Rabosai, let's start our next topic, the third topic that we have the schus to study together here in the 8th parak of Bava Basra. Again, like I said on the WhatsApp. So I think if we're going to be having shir, so I think maybe we'll have Gemara shir. We'll see how it goes. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday we'll do something else. It'll be Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. We'll focus on something else, some Divrei Hashkafa or something. But we'll see. Okay, let's get into our new topic, which is again I have some more Makomos that usually happens in the terms of preparation, but that's the way it works. You have the basis. Here we go. Kuf Ches Amid Beis. Kuf Ches Amid Beis. Who wants to start us off? Who wants to start us off? Ellie, you want to start us off? Ellie, you want to start us off? Kuf Ches Amid Beis, the Gemara?
You're talking about Eli Hyman, right?
Eli Hyman, yes.
Okay. From where?
Let's start. Right, what did the Gemara say? The Gemara said that it does not say. Why doesn't it say first? Right. So the Gemara says first of all, it's not Baranus, and also it over to say at the top of Kufchas Mabez. Ishki Amusu Ben Aimlo. Right. So what the last word on the first line? Let's start with that. Tana.
Ana
Everybody else, let's get into it. Yeah. Tana.
Ana ID Asile, Medusha Chavivale. So we weren't too sure, but I think it's that another the Tana brought it in because he liked this drasha, as in there was a nice drasha for him.
Because he darshaned it, that's why it was beloved and chaviv to him. Meaning, if something's before in the Torah, that's amazing. But why did Rabbi Yehuda Anasi put this first in the Mishnah? Because it came out from Torah Shebal Peh. And Torah Shebal Peh, in a certain sense, is more beloved than Torah Shebal Chsav. Obviously, Torah Shebal Chsav comes from Hashem. There's nothing more chaviv than that. But there's a certain sense of chavivus to what a person creates themselves, as we know that. And therefore, because it's chaviv to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, that's why he put it first. So the father yarshaning is not mafurish, as we mentioned yesterday from the Ramban. We spent a lot of time on that Ramban. Because the father is not mafurish, that is why it is mentioned first in the Mishnah. So now the Gemara goes into what is the drasha. How do you know that a father darshans? The darshan that a father yarshans. Right? So how do you know that a father yarshans? So here we go. Umay drasha. What is the drasha?
The tiny is torn and Bryce She'er is the ha'av. The word in the pasuk She'er, this refers to the father. Malamed the teeps Sha'av kedem l'achin, that the father comes before the brothers.
Oh, there it is. The word She'er. The word She'er means blood relative. Means flesh. She'er basar. So who is that blood relative that's not mentioned before in the Torah? Says the Gemara is talking about the father. So you know that the father comes before the brothers. And this is what we spoke about in the last sugya. Continue.
Yochel, you might say Yehei Kedim Lebein, that he would come before the son as well.
Wow. That's the Havamina, that the father would be first. The father would be first even before the sons. Okay.
Tamalema HaKorv Kedim. So it's like the big raya that tells by the order.
At the son is the closest one, so that's the drasha. Hakarov, the one that's closest goes first, and we assume the son is the one that's meant by Karov. That's why the son goes before the father. Here we go. Now comes our key line for this topic. Well, Marisa, so the Gemara says you learn from a drasha that father, what's the order? Son, father, brothers. Son, father, brothers. Right, that's the order. Says the Gemara.
What did you see to include the son, and to exclude the brother? I would include the son. She came from Tasav because
maybe you should flip it. Why is it son, father, brother? It could be brother, father, son. And this is going to be the competition between the brother and the son. That's what we're going to try to figure out now. So the Gemara says the son beats the brother. Why should the son beat the brother? Meaning the son is a closer relative. There came two halachas. Yeah?
He replaces the father in terms of getting this chuzah.
Oh, so Yud and chuzah. Just explain, these aren't our, I was toying with the idea, but we're not going to do it. These are two big topics that we could talk about, but we're not going to. Yud and chuzah. Right, so what's Yud? What's the case of Yud? Rashbam explained. What's the case that if a Jew takes an Amma Ivriya? Who's an Amma Ivriya? A full Jewish girl. A full Jewish girl is very poor, and she needs somebody to take care of her. So a fellow Jew takes her as an Amma Ivriya. Takes her as an Amma Ivriya, she's going to work for him. The halacha is, the favorite pasuk in Parshat Mishpatim, that the father, the master who took her as an Amma, has to marry her. In quotes. Marry in quotes. It's a quasi-marriage called Yud. Yud Ayin of Daled, as described. What is the connection between Yud and a regular marriage? Good kasha, not for now, but that's one of the major sugyas in Maseches Kiddushin, in the Yud Dafim. But the halacha is that the father has to mean the master, the owner, has to do Yud, and if he doesn't, his son could do Yud. One or the other. He or his son have to do Yud. But his brother cannot do Yud. What do you mean can't? What does that mean? So Rashi explains, or the Rashbam explains, meaning he doesn't have to give her any more money than the original kesef that he quote unquote bought her with. Right? He bought her with kesef avdus, and he just has to say to her, Hari at. There's a great line in the Rashbam. Machlokas Rishonim, but this is the Rashbam Shita. The Rashbam about 20 lines in. Hare at miyu edesli. Right? The Rashbam says that there's a special lashon. You don't say Hare at mukudeshesli. Hare at miyu edesli. Right? So the father could do yud, or the son could do yud. That's it. The brother can. So you see, what do you see from that halacha? There's a special connection between the son and the person, closer than the brother and the person. The son could do yid while the brother cannot do yid. That is halacha number one of yid. Again, yid is a big topic. It's great. Feel free to research it, how it relates to a regular marriage. It has some elements of a regular marriage and some elements not of a regular marriage, but that is the yid. So a son beats brother for yid. And number two is ste'achuza. So what's the halacha of ste'achuza? What do you want to explain? What's the halacha of ste'achuza? Again, the Rashbam explains for us. These are psukim in next week's parsha. Parshas B'chul Kosai. Somebody is makdish a sadeh. Somebody gives their field to the Beis HaMikdash. And then the Gizbar, the Gabbai of the Beis HaMikdash, sells that field to somebody. If by the time Yovel comes, the owner does not redeem it, he can redeem it if he wants. The owner gave it to the Beis Hamikdash, but let's say the owner has rights to redeem it from the person who bought it. If he doesn't redeem it by the time Yovel comes, it goes to the Kohanim forever. It goes to the Kohanim forever. The only way it won't go to the Kohanim forever is if he, the owner himself, buys it back. He buys it back before Yovel, and he keeps it. Or if his son buys it back. If his son buys it from the person who bought it from Hektish, it goes back to the father also. It's Ki'ilu he bought it. It's Ki'ilu he bought it. If anybody else buys it, it leaves the hands of the buyers and goes to the Kohanim. But if the owner himself buys it for Yovel, or if the son buys it back before Yovel, it's Ki'ilu, the person himself bought it, and that's called Stei Achuza, the sad of his Achuza, of his heritage. And those two halachas is a special din by son and not brother. The brother of the guy who sold it cannot buy it. So says the Gemara. Why do you include son? Son is closer than brother by Nachala, because a son is a closer relationship. You see, in these two areas of halacha, a son wins, a son works, and a brother doesn't work. Right? So that's ben over ach. Fine. Says the Gemara now, one more line, Eli. Adarabba.
Adarabba, mar b'nias ach, shekain kom tach echos, ochiv Yibum. I would include the brother because the brother comes in place of the mace when it comes to Yibum.
Oh, right. If a man dies, then a man dies without children, then his brother marries his wife. So you see, that's a unique halacha that a brother is kam tachtav. So you want to say the son has two yiyud and ste'achuza, but the brother has kam tachtav for Yibum. Okay, says the Gemara. Next line. This is the basis of our whole topic. This line right here. Yeah.
Klum Yeish Yibum. Ela b'makim she'ein bein. Yibum doesn't happen unless in a place where there isn't a son. Ha b'makim she'esh bein, in a place where there is a son, ein Yibum, there's no Yibum.
What does that mean? What is the Gemara telling?
That the son is essentially more important than a brother because the son.
You already formulated like one of the cheetahs of the Rishonim. But at least the son plays a major role. Ask the Gemara. How could you say Eli thinks he's Tosfos? That's fine. I think you're like Tosfos too. I know it's not like I see Rabbeinu Tam when I see you. But says the Gemara. How could you say that a brother plays the major role when it comes to Yibum? The brother would play no role if there had been a son. The brother only gets involved when there was no son. But if there's a son, the brother doesn't do Yibum, obviously. Right? A brother is only when there is no Yibum. It's only when there's no kids. So it says the Gemara, you can't bring Yibum as a, let's say, as a point for Ach. Right? Who's going to win? So Ben wins. Ben has 2 points on their side. Ben has Ste'achuza and Ben has Yud. Ach has Yibum. No, so the Gemara said, no. Ach doesn't have Yibum because a son plays a role in Yibum too. If there was a son, then there wouldn't be a brother. And therefore, that can't be a factor why brother would beat son. That is the Gemara. That's all the Gemara says. That Yibum cannot be a factor for brother beating son. The question is, though, somebody finished my sentence. That's what the Gemara says. But what's going to be the question in the Rishonim? Fine, it can't be a factor whether a brother is not better. It can't be a factor for brother beating son. But what's going to be the machlokes? What are we going to figure out, Yaakov? Yaakov, you have your hand up? You're a little sideways. Okay. Oh, now you're straight. I don't think you'd be able to listen to my shiur if I was sideways, but I don't know how to do the screen. If I go sideways, I think it'd be more difficult.
My phone's having a problem charging. I'm trying to figure it out.
That's fine.
It's at 9%. Sorry.
Yeah. So what's going to be the machlokas? So the Gemara, all the Gemara says is that Yibum cannot be a factor for brother being stronger than son. because brother only gets off the ground if there is no sun. And if there is a sun, so then obviously brother is not going to get off the ground. Comes along Tosfos. We're going to look at Tosfos first before we look at the Rashbam. Comes along Tosfos, and Tosfos tells us something crucial. What does Tosfos tell us? Who saw Yonatan? You saw the Tosfos?
Yeah.
What does Tosfos tell us? Tosfos says, don't think
that this is it's talking about really a son that might go before, that the Ach might go before the son. It's talking about a daughter, I think.
Well, he brings in the Gemara about daughter. He does, but what is Tosfos' point? What is Tosfos trying to tell us? Don't think blank, but say blank. What does Tosfos say? Nathaniel, you saw with Yonatan. Who else wants to take a stab? Yehuda, you saw what is Tosfos trying to say? Right? Don't think that when the Gemara says this is not a factor for brother, that the Gemara is telling us that
he's better.
That what?
He's better. He's better.
Don't think that the Gemara is saying that they're equal. That brother has a role and son has a role. Don't think that they cancel each other out. That's not what the Gemara is saying. When the Gemara says that, hey, well, the brother only plays a role if there's no son. If there's a son, then the brother plays no role. Don't think that when the Gemara says that, it's canceling out that factor, and therefore it ends up being 2-0. Remember, son has 2. Yud and Steachuza. The Gemara tried to say that brother has 1. So what the Gemara knocked that out. The Tosfos says, don't think that after the dust clears, it's still 2-0. But Ach and Ben both both play a role in Yibum, so you just forget that factor. And it ends up 2-0. So Tosfos says, no. It ends up 3-0. Yibum is a factor for Ben. It ends up 3-0, not 2-0. Understand? It's not that the Gemara countered and said, well, Ben and Ach are both involved, so it cancels each other out. Forget that factor, and Ben's going to beat Ach 2-0. No. Says Tosfos, what the Gemara is saying is that the Gemara flips Yibum from being a factor for brother to a factor for son. That's what Tosfos says, and now let's read Tosfos inside to see, because does Tosfos say it? Let me ask you this. Does Tosfos say it misvara, or does Tosfos say it because of a problem in a Gemara? You get that part? That part we have to figure out. All right, what is that? What did Tosfos say? You with me? I only see the screen. I love to see you. Ephraim, what do you say? Does Tosfos say? Is Tosfos saying it based on a logic or based on a Gemara? What does Tosfos say?
Not exactly sure.
Right, the Tosfos does not quote any logic. Tosfos is based on the Gemara. Based on the Gemara on the next Amud. Let's see it. Let's see it inside now. Tosfos says, "Klum Yeish Yibum al b'makam shein ben." What does Tosfos say? Ein lefarish below adif le'inyan Yibum ben me'ach. Don't say the following 3 lines. Don't say. Again, I understand sometimes it's harder to get the Tosfos him, Zoom wise. Somebody sent me, just parenthetically, because you have to have a little to the bidichusa, in the Zoom shiurim. Somebody sent me a WhatsApp today. It said there's a new word that has developed, a new Yiddish word. What's the new Yiddish word? Ausgezumt. What's ausgezumt? Overexposed to, fatigued by, exhausted from, bored by. Add it with Zoom. Ich bin azoi ausgezumt. Aaron Finkel probably likes that a lot because of his, background Yiddish in high school. I appreciate that, the payas. But ausgezumt, right? That's the Yiddish word of the day. I'm finished with Zoom. Again, we can't. We have to get into the Zoom. I know it's a little trickier. And remember, this is not a normal-based medrash. We realize that, then you have to realize that yourself. And not to get too hard on yourself that I'm not learning as well. And the Chavrusa is not, look, we're doing the best we can under the circumstances. This is what Hashem wants us to do. So, but We can't go to Eisgezumt. We have to try to focus on the Torah that we're doing. So we're learning Tosfos now together. But again, give chizuk to each other and recognize that little by little, Hashem understands. Hashem wants us to fight through it, and B'ez Hashem, we will get there, and a better place will come soon. So says the Tosfos. Again, Tosfos is saying when the Gemara makes the statement that the Gemara, remember, wanted to bring Yibum as a factor why brother wins. The brother's the only one that does Yibum, and Tosfos and the Gemara said no. Brother wouldn't get off the ground if the son was there. The Tosfos says, don't think the Gemara is saying they're equal. They're not equal, and therefore you cancel out the factor. That's not what the Gemara is saying. Ein lefarish, says Tosfos. Below adif le'inyan yibum ben me'ach. Elakomer hein shavin le'inyan yibum. Don't say that they're all equal. The imkain, this is all part of the don't say. See me in Tosfos, third line. The imkain. And if this is true, if it would be true that they would be equal, if you want to say they're equal, and therefore the only reason that Ben beats Ach is because of the other two factors. In Yibum's out, so it's 2-0. Don't say that, says Tosfos. The Al-Karachach already starts the second answer. Whenever you have a Tosfos that starts off with the name Lefarish, you have to know exactly where you have to read that Tosfos till. Where does the rejection start? So here it is, Dal Karchach. Says the Gemara, Dal Karchach, no. L'kaman gabe bas lo efshel lefarish came. On the next Amud, you can't understand it like this. You can't say that Ben and Bas, you can't say that Ben and Ach are equal here. It has to be that Ben wins. It has to be that Ben wins. Not that it's canceled out. Why? Because, okay, let's look at the next daf now. We have to look at the next daf for a moment to understand what Tosfos is talking about. Let's skip to the next daf. Look at the next daf, but hopefully you saw this Gemara. There's the Gemara on the fourth line. Uf Tesam and Alf. Ema. Everybody with me? Ema. She'ero. Maybe this is how you should darshan the psukim, says the Gemara. Even though we said before. Ema. She'ero zeha'av. Melamed shaha'av kodem labas. Maybe that's the drasha. She'er means father. Teach me that father goes before daughter, which is wrong, right? But we're suggesting this. Maybe father goes before daughter. Yochol yakim laben. You might think a father even goes before son. No, don't say that. So what's this possibility? Son, father, daughter. That's the order. Maybe that's what you should say. You should say son, father, daughter. How do you know that's not true? Answers the Gemara. Since regarding Yibum, sons and daughters are equal, meaning both of them, right? If you have a son or a daughter, there's no Yibum. So since for Yibum, son and daughter are equal, since for Yibum they're equal, so Ben and Bas, regarding Nachla, they're also equal. If for Yibum they're equal, so for Nachla they're equal. Because Ben is so strong by Yibum, Ben plays a central role. I'm just reformulating the line of the Gemara. Since by Yibum, Ben plays a central role, so too Bas. Bas also plays that central role. And because they play that central role by Yibum, so too by Nachla, son and daughter have to go together. So they both beat the father. That's the Gemara. If the Gemara's Havamina is maybe the father should be daughter, then it says the Gemara, no, can't be. Can't be because daughter has to go with son. Daughter has to go with son. So ask Tosfos now. Now back to our Tosfos for 1 minute. I'll say it outside first. If son really for Yibum, he's just canceled out. Right? What Tosfos is in Lefarish. If son and brother kind of cancel out, and Yibum doesn't play a special role for son, so then really, why does son win? Yud and Steachuza. That shouldn't apply to daughter. If Ben doesn't have Yibum, has a strong factor for it, if Yibum is just canceled out, and that's what our Gemara means, then why should Bas be with Ben on the next Amud? If Ben only has two factors, Lamaskana, Stei Achuza and Yud, then what does that have to do with daughter? Daughter doesn't have those two factors. And therefore, daughter shouldn't be with son. If you say son has a special place because of Yibum, so Bas also has that place by Yibum. If Yibum, so to speak, goes onto the side of Ben, it becomes a factor for Ben, and that's how you understand our Gemara. So then you could say, daughter also has that factor. So Ben and Bas could go together. But if you say that all our Gemara is saying is that Ben and Ach cancel, and Yibum is not a factor, then why does Ben win? Yid and Steachusa. Those two have nothing to do with Bas. So why should Bas go with Ben on the next Amud? That's Tosfos's claim. Okay, let's go back to Tosfos then. Let's go back to Tosfos. Tosfos quotes our Gemara. The Al-Karchach, Kamon Gabi Basel Achel Farish came. Tosfos says, if you want to say, what does our Gemara mean? When our Gemara says, well, once there's a son, then brother doesn't get off the ground. So Ben and Ach are equal. You want to say it means equal? This Tosfos doesn't work because the Gemara in the next Amud wouldn't make sense. Shalafarish came. Because we say since regarding Yibum, they're equal. What does that Gemara saying? The Gemara that we just read. It's explaining why son and daughter should both be first before father, before brothers. For 1 second. But if our Gemara is understood that Ben and Ach are equal, not that Ben is better, then how do you apply it to Bas? Daughter isn't better with Yid. The only thing that daughter has is Yibum. But if you're telling me that Yibum, daughter and brother are equal, there's no reason that daughter should go before brother. So that is why Tosfos says, Ela Vadai, Mehai Taima. So now Tosfos says, this is what the Gemara really means. Don't explain it that brother and son are equal. The Gemara in the next Amud wouldn't make sense. It has to be that our Gemara means son beats brother. Ela Vadai Mehai Taima. The Klum Yeish Yibum El B'Makom Shein Bas. She's better. Bas Mekim Shem, Bach Eina Mekayim Shem, Ela Tzorach Liyabeim. What is it? Because a daughter is better than Ach. Because a Bas is making Shem, and a brother has to do Yibum, right? The brother only does Yibum when the child doesn't exist. But if a child exists, so then there is no Yibum done. So that is the Shita of Tosfos. That is the Shita of Tosfos. Question. Yes, Ellie. Ellie Isaacs, you had a question?
No.
What?
No, nothing.
Nothing? Okay. Anybody else? Everybody have Tosfos? Yeah, Yosef.
Why can't we just say that since we know that the daughter goes before the father and we know that the father goes before the brother, then automatically the daughter has to go before the brother?
How do you know the daughter goes before the father?
Except from Yibum.
What do you know? The Gemara, the father has nothing to do with it. Right? The father, what the Gemara says that father goes before somebody. We're trying to figure out who father goes before. So we said it can't be go before the son. So maybe it goes before the daughter. The Gemara says, no. Since son and daughter, go together for Yibum, that's why the father can't go before. That's all.
Right, so we see the brother. So we see the daughter goes before the father. So even if we can't use this as a proof to say that the daughter goes before the brother also, once we know that the daughter goes before the father and we have a separate proof that says the father goes before the brother, then we don't need to teach that the daughter goes before the brother because we know it automatically.
No, but I think if Yibum wasn't a factor for son and daughter. It just like equalizes. So then I don't think daughter would go before father either. Meaning if it just equalizes.
The father has no role in
but it's not.
Yibum.
What?
The father has no role in Yibum. And you can say that the brother and
the Gemara's maskana here is that the father has to go before somebody. So if it's not going to go before the son and the daughter, okay, the brother is the one that's left. But if there's no svara to say that daughter should go before brother, I understand what you're saying. You're trying to stop it at father, and say, well, father to brother. But I think the Gemara in Tosfos' assumption, he's saying if the logic doesn't work, that one should be three. So then it's the whole basis. If Yibum wasn't a proper factor for Bas, then it shouldn't be brother either. And therefore you should be able to say that the father goes before the daughter and not before the brother. Yeah, Avram.
So the last line of Tosfos giving an explanation for why the Bas would be better? Because she's making shame?
Okay, we're going to get to that, but yeah.
So then he's giving a little bit of a svara for why the Bas should be better.
Okay, we'll have to we'll talk about it. He doesn't start off with that, but he is giving a little svara at the end. Okay.
Rabbi, it has nothing to do with that. It's just not shaykh. Yibum's just not shaykh by the father. The father's married to the woman.
No, let's say the father of a guy who dies has no place in Yibum. Right, the father Reuven dies without children. His father Yaakov has no connection to the Yibum. Only his brother does and his child does. Right, you can't talk about Yibum
because he already did his chiyuv of Yibum. He was married and had a kid. That's what I'm saying. Like, what does it matter if his son didn't pass it on?
No, I'm saying, but the brother who's going to do Yibum also has a kid. Right, it's just the one who died doesn't have a child. So you might have thought that he has to marry his daughter-in-law. I mean, I don't know. That's an isser, but we'll see. Avrami.
Is it possible for a daughter to buy the steachuza? And if she does, why wouldn't?
No, she has no nachla. Girls don't have nachla, except if it's like through their father, which is like tzlafchan. But per se, a daughter cannot buy nachla. Doesn't matter. We'll talk about that. Right. That's why there's a discussion Rashi and Tosfos. You can look it up in Brachos on the Chafim Beis, where Rashi and Tosfos discuss. The Gemara there has a suffix that it could be that women are not obligated in benching midaraisa. And the question is why. So one of them, I forgot who says what. I think Rashi says because they don't have a nachla, and you have to say Eretz Chemda Tova Rechava. That you're giving us Eretz Yisrael because they don't have a nachla. So that's why it might be that they're only chayv in Berchas Hamaz and Durabanan. The other one says they don't have bris milah. That also has to be mentioned.
Well, she's capable of owning, right?
What?
She's capable of owning land, no?
A woman could only own a piece of land if it came through, if she's standing there in the place of her father or something. But it's not that, especially if steachus doesn't apply to them.
So she can't buy land.
Right. I mean, she's not, generally goes to the father, goes to her husband. Yaakov, you had a question?
It might be different because it was before the Torah was given, but couldn't at least Yehuda was able to do Yibum with Tamar, even though he was the father. But what about would that have worked there?
That's a different type of Yibum. The Ramban there talks about Yibum, but that's a different type of Yibum. The word is used, but people will touch on that, but a little bit. But either way, this is the sheet of Tosfos. If you look in the Rashbam only has one line. Only has one line. He says the same thing as Tosfos, maybe. What does the Rashbam say? Last line of the Rashbam. After the Rashbam says, the Gemara says, well, there's only going to be Yibum for the brother if there is no son. But if there's a son, there is no Yibum. What does the Rashbam say? Last line, Alma, afilu l'gabe Yibum, Kama ben tachas aviv, tfei. Fei, there's the word. Fei. Fei me'achi aviv. Fei poter osam imenu. No, the son is Fei. Is more than the brother. Right? So Tosfos and the Rashbam on the surface seem to say the same thing. Meaning, at the end of the day, it's 3-0. It's not 2-0 with one thing that's neutralized. Right? The son has Steachuza and Yud and Yibum. Is there a difference between Tosfos and the Rashbam? Any difference? Maybe not. Maybe not. But it could be, I saw one of the Achronim point this out, it could be that the Rashbam says it as more of just a natural, obvious, logical. This factor proves that this is the way it is. Tosfos has to go through proving it from the next Gemara. Yes, like Avram said, he does quote a svara in the last line. But you read the whole Tosfos until the last line. What does Tosfos say? You can't say that it's equalized because the Gemara says on the next page, it's not going to work. It sounds like Tosfos is bothered by the textual first. And then once that happens, he'll give a svara. The Rashbam is much more natural. It's for sure the son is more. The son for sure plays a more of a central a role than the brother. The Rashbam doesn't explain why. Doesn't bring any Gemaras. Again, they're both saying that the brother is secondary and the son is primary in Yibum. Yibum ends up being a factor for the son and not for the brother. It's not equalized. The son beats the brother. But it could be the Rashbam has a little more natural way of saying it. What would be natural? Why was it natural? Why is it logical to say that the son, when the Gemara says, well, the son, beats once the son is there, then the brother doesn't get off the ground. So why is that? Why is it logical to say that the son is the one that's going to play more of a central role? I gave you the Ritva to look at. Again, the last line of Tosfos already kind of says it, but the Ritva really says it explicitly. Right? The Ritva formulates it as, why should the son be more? Okay, when the son is there, the son does it. The son's not there, the brother steps in. So why should the son be looked at as anything more than the brother? What does the Ritva say? The Ritva says the brother has to do something. The son just exists. The fact that the son just exists, not have to do anything, doesn't that show that he's more of a central player? The brother has to do Yibum. What's the lashon of the Ritva? Let me find the language of the Ritva. Kashali mikol makom. The makom she'ein ben hariach kamatachtav. What's the problem? When there's no son, then the brother comes in, and he plays just as much of a role. When there's a son, the son. When there's a brother, when there's no son, there's a brother. Says the Ritva. Yeish lomar tekima de b'makom she'ein ben ein sarech liyibum. When there's no son, he doesn't have to do Yibum. She'ein ben sarech liyibum l'kayim shmo. Harizu raya gemura. Ben tachazav l'kayim shmo. Ritva calls this a raya gemura. We'll have to try to figure out if there's any way to get out of it. This is a raya gemura that the son plays the major role. Why? Because he has to do nothing. He just is there, done. Masha'enkein ba'ach b'didei tzorach Yibum. He doesn't do Yibum, and he doesn't. He has to act. You have to act based on a v'lo, choshev shema meis machui, and if not, then the shema meis is erased. It says the Ritva, that's a raya that son is more. So Tosfos already, Ritva, I didn't catch it in Tosfos until I saw the Ritva. But now you look back at the last line of Tosfos, like Avram said, it could be Tosfos is saying this too. He just doesn't broadcast it as loudly. The last line of that, look back at the last line of Tosfos now, right? He adifa me'ach the bas mekim hashem, ba'ach eno mekim shem elat sarach liyabim. Could be that Tosfos is saying this too. Again, Tosfos only says it once he proved that, the Gemara over there is a problem. He doesn't say it as smoothly as the Rashbam. Again, not going to focus on that. But they both hold that the son is more. The Ritva gives a strong svara, right? The brother has to do something. The son doesn't have to do anything. And therefore, that's a raya gemura says the Ritva, that son beats brother when it comes to Yibum. It's not just equalized. He plays the central role. Yeah, Eli.
The Gemara on based on the Rashbam, the Gemara in Kuf Yud Amud Bet says that the reason why the girl can't do Yada is because she's just not a Bas Yada, so it's just impossible for her to marry another girl. And when I looked at the Rashbam again over here on Kuf Tesamarav, it sounds like really he says it's Chada versus Chada, like one by the brother versus one by the son, and then the fact that he has Yibum helps him beat out the brother, but Yibum itself, it sounds like, wouldn't beat out the brother.
We're going to talk about that Gemara a little bit later. I'll look back at the Rashbam. You take the top Rashbam here, Testament Aleph.
I know. Kuf Yud Amud Bet. It's the Umay Korva de Ben. And what's the closeness of the Ben? And he goes through and he says that he seems to say that She'iyaf Shah the Isha that it's just impossible for a woman to marry another woman.
We'll talk about that. Okay, let's just try to get in one final point before we break. Why is this so crucial? Tosfos and the Rashbam seem to be against implicitly. Who does it seem to be against? Who saw it? I'm a foolish, but it's if you read it very closely, it seems that way. Balamar. What was the Balamar's name?
Zrachia Halevi.
Zrachia Halevi. Thank you. Zrachia Halevi, one of the Rishonim from Provence, southern France, the Balamar, the Ravid, the Meiri, the Hashlama, they're all from Provence. So the Balamar in the back of the Gemara, right, let's just do this. The Balamar says, Balamar is always on the bottom of the Rif. Called the Mara Gadol in Nashim and Ezekiel, the Mara Katan in Moed. If you look at the Balamar here, I have the old Gemaras, the tiny print. The Balamar says, Mahadrinan. But you have that Balamar, right? Klum Yeshivim L'Wakam Shem Ben, Yeish Ben Ein Yibum. Shelo Amr Torah Mitzvahs Yibum Elo L'Hakim Shem Achib Yisrael. Nimsa, a Ben Ikra Mitzvah. If you stop there, sounds like Tosfos, the Rashbam. Nimsa Ben Ikra Mitzvah, but keep reading. The Kivan Shekain, Nimtzas Kurvas HaBen Gedola Mishel Ach. Ben comes out, the curve of the Ben is better than the Ach. What do the next lines of the Balamar be? It's more than the Ach because it's 3-0. What did he say? Why does the Ben beat Ach? Ben come tachas aviv liyada. Mashein came to Ach. Because after all, the Ben has Yud. What does Ben has Yud? Ben has Yibum also. Didn't we just say that? Ben has Yibum too. What does it mean because he has Yid? He doesn't say Achuza because the Achuza might be, it's learned from Yid in another Gemara. Fine. Ukeshem shu kam tachas aviv liyada, dinu she kam tachas aviv tachlo nachla. Today roas ben kilo achiv kayam. Lefichach Yaakov kodem aviem v'nefse Yaakov Yitzchak. Rabbi Yaakov has an important line for kam tachta relating to our first sugya here. Anu roem es Yitzchak ilu kayam. That's an important line for our first sugya. We see Yitzchak as if he's alive. But that's not our topic anymore right now. But what does he say? He says, quotes the line of the Gemara, Ben wins when he exists. And therefore, Ben is stronger than Ach because of Yud. Because of Yud, should be because of Yibum too. So some of the Mefarshim explain the Balamar seems to be against Tosfos and the Rashbam. And no, he understands the Gemara. Again, if Tosfos says Ein Lefarish, then there's probably someone out there that is Mefarish that way. Right? If he says Ein Lefarish, it must be that somebody is Mefarish that way. This could be the Balamar. Right? That this line of Ben to Ach is saying that they're equalized. And therefore it ends up being that they're canceled, and therefore it's really 2-0. It's not 3-0. If that's true, then what do we have to do? If that's really the sheet of the Balamar, then we have 2 things to do. What do we have to do? Number 1, we have to explain the textual problem. Number 2, the logical problem. Tosfos brought a textual problem from Daf Kuftes. Okay, before tomorrow's shir, please go over the Tosfos. Make sure you have the raya that Tosfos has from that Gemara and Daf Kuftes, because tomorrow we're going to try to figure out an answer for it. If the Balamar really holds what Tosfos rejects, then we're going to have to give an answer to Tosfos' proof. Number 2, we're going to have to try to answer the Ritva's taina. What did the Ritva say? And Tosfos seemed to say it. Ben beats brother because a son doesn't have to do anything. He's just there. That shows he's stronger. Then the brother has to do Yibum. That shows he's not as strong of a factor. Is there any way to argue on that? The Ritva calls that Raya Gemura. So we're going to have to say something for the Balamor. Is there any way to discuss that logic in a different way? So that's going to be our job tomorrow, Hashem, trying to figure out what the Balamor does with that Raya from the Gemara and what's the logic. Let me just give you 1 or 2 other sources. I put out, just for tomorrow, look at the Gemara in Yivamis on Daf Chav Daled. I gave you that Gemara, I wrote it, just write it, Chav Daled Amud Aleph, from the beginning of the Gemara. It's amazing. The Gemara quotes here, it's a collector's item Gemara. The Gemara says there's only one exception to the rule in all of Torah, where we don't understand the pasuk al pi pshuto. We always have the pshat and then additional levels. The Gemara says there's one place in all of Torah where we reject the pshat totally, and that's by Yibum. So do the Mishnah and the Gemara, the first 10 lines of the Gemara, that Chav Daled Amud Aleph. Do that one. You could also look the Mishnah I gave you on Daf Nun Gimel at the beginning of Parak Habal Yevimto. I told you to look at Nun Gimel Amud Beis and Yevamis. You could look at the first piece of Gemara also, like the first 10 lines of the Gemara on that Mishnah. Nun Gimel Amud Beis Nun Daled Amud Aleph. Are you writing this down? So you'll have it, right? Nun Gimel Amud Beis Nun Daled Amud Aleph. So you have Yevamis Chav Daled, Yevamis Nun Gimel Amud Beis Nun Daled Amud Aleph, and finally Kiddushin. Look at Kiddushin, Yud Beis Amud Beis. Kiddushin, Yud Beis Amud Beis, where it says that Rav used to give Malchus to anyone who was Makadesh B'Biyah. We know you could get married, Kesef Shtar and Biyah. Rav gave Malchus. Look over there in Kiddushin, Rashi, Tosas, Ritva. On that line of the Gemara that Rav gave Malchus to anyone who was Makadesh B'Biyah.